my old man was like, "Yeah, you should go out there and say my grandpa like says you're a bunch of wimps who ride a bunch of baby bikes because you can't even ride you can't even ride a Harley." And my grandfather was like, "No, no, don't do that. Do not." Hello and welcome to another Dead Pixel. I'm your host Joe, and with me, the gentleman who really tried to join a biker gang just so he can go to Sturgis this weekend. Nick, how you doing, Nick?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I can't recommend doing that. You just there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things about being in a biker gang that seem really easy, but are really not. Riding a motorcycle, for one, is not as easy as it looks. Um, Also, they don't really wear a lot of plaid, and they do have a lot of tattoos. So I was wrong on both of those counts. Also, they know the traffic laws really, really well, and I don't. And they use words like brother and man, but in a very different way than I do. So, yeah, it was about 45 minutes before I got found out. And They also tend to ride Harleys and choppers and not like Suzuki's and Hondas. Though there are different motorcycle gangs that do that, but they were not as easily accessible. So I'm still
It would
healing.
also help you if you were not basing you got to base it off of the right Grand Theft Auto 4 DLC, right? Because there was the Lost and the Damned, which you should have based your character off of, but instead, I know you went with the Ballad of Gay Tony, and that might have been where things got a little messy, you know. So
Now that you put it that way, yeah, it should have been very obvious to me from the start.
Uh, I love how in GTA 5, one of the first things they do is when you introduce Trevor, they literally have Trevor killing off the main dude from the Lost and the Damned. They have him beating him they beat him to death right there. Like, yep, all right, now the guy who you thought was really cool and tough in the previous thing, he's gone now.
Gosh.
Uh,
Just a
yeah,
way to. It's because we got to sell more toys, so we got to kill the old characters off. I'm doing
but
good,
yeah,
Joe. How are you?
doing all right. Yeah, I actually went to Sturgis once when I was in like middle school, and it was funny because the hotel my father booked, or the motel we were at, he happened to he knew about it from before, and we had one of the only like 3 rooms that were available to the public, and the entire motel was rented out by the Hells Angels, actually.
Oh wow.
So, that was
Yeeks.
pretty wild. It was like, they were really chill, they were really cool. It's actually probably one of the best kept secrets at the time. We're talking like uh, late 90s, but it was, all the new recruits essentially took point at like there's only like 2 or 3 entrances to the place, but they had the whole place kind of standing guard, and they rotated. And then also the cops came by like every 20 minutes roughly. So if you were in there, your bikes were safe. Like no one was going to mess with your bikes, and no one was going to try to come in. So it's probably one of the best kept secrets of just being safe. And uh, it was really neat because, opposed to, like growing up watching, uh, what was it, Mask, or any, like,
Oh yeah.
or Easy Rider essentially, but Mask was the one I really, knew about, and not Jim Carrey, The Mask, but
Not the
and
mask,
it
just
was,
mask with Jim
yeah,
Stoltz or Eric Stoltz.
uh,
Anyway, yeah.
I believe it, yeah, I believe that was the actor, and so it was actually, it was pretty interesting because they had like doctors and stuff like that, lawyers on their team, which makes perfect sense. They actually had people driving like Yamaha Ventures and Honda Goldwings, like touring bikes, but they were also, some of them, I guess, were coming out from much farther away. And it was funny because my grandfather rode a really crappy Sportster, which is a Harley. But even back then, when it was brand new, it's not a good bike. Um, it's like it's not meant for comfort, I should say. It's good for looking, but not for anything else. and my father had like a BMW, and I had an uncle who had uh, a Yamaha Venture, which is a touring bike. So it was just funny because we had all three, all three across the board. But my old man was like, "Yeah, you should go out there and say my grandpa like says you're a bunch of wimps who ride a bunch of baby bikes because you can't even ride, you can't even ride a Harley." And my grandfather was like, "No, no, don't do that. Do not." I've never. And this is a dude who was like a drill sergeant, during the Vietnam era, and it was just funny. So just watching him just flip that switch, and then granted, we kind of never let him live it down afterwards, but it was just my my uncle and my father just loved the look on his face to see their dad completely like, do not go out there. I'm like, of course I'm not going to go out there and just start stuff. I'm not that dumb.
That's pretty funny.
Uh,
The
but
uh,
Sturgis it was actually pretty good.
the
So
the college town that I
go on.
went, the town that I went to college in, had its own fairly decent sized motorcycle festival, in and around it. Um, and I don't know if they still have it there, but I do remember that. I remember being like, "Oh, cool! That thing happens every year or whatever." And people getting, in college, people that I knew didn't really get excited about it, but people around the town did. But I remember toward the end of me being there, people saying that, kind of hearing some people starting to say that they didn't really want it in the town anymore because basically they were saying that someone died every year, uh, due to it. And usually it was someone from like out of town or whatever, but it was like somebody getting drunk and riding the motorcycle and crashing and stuff like that. And it's like, well, you're getting like 3,000 bikes or whatever, 1,000 bikers all in one place, people having a party. Stuff's going to happen. But anyway, um, that's the only kind of experience that I've had with like a a large motorcycle festival is kind of being a little bit around it when it would come to my college town. But yeah, I mean, I think motorcycles are really cool, but am I just have never been excited enough about them to go learn how to ride one, more than I am scared of dying on one, um, or being severely injured. But
I
they are
mean, you
really
are
cool.
in Texas, and they have some excellent driving in the big cities there.
Oh
So I
yeah.
can see the fear for sure.
Oh yeah.
It's you don't have to be worrying about yourself. It's always worrying about the other people. Drive
Well,
defensively, they teach you.
my dad has done some motorcycle driving, like when he was younger, and he sold all of it. He's had a couple bikes, here and there, and ended up selling. His most recent one was like it was a Honda. It was some sort of, but it wasn't like a Ninja or anything like that. It was a bigger bike. He sold it, and I was like, "Why'd you sell it?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's just too dangerous, and it's just not worth it for me to ride it anymore. I'm not going to do anything on it that would really be fun. Um, that would also not be dangerous." And I was like, "Okay," which was just kind of his opinion, but but
It's easier to get into when you're
but
younger
but
because
his
you can balance easier.
well his opinion about it, something he told me about it is he was telling me about like people that ride motorcycles, know the law better, tend to know the law better than the general population of car drivers because, they have to protect themselves. They have to know exactly, because if they do mess up, they're not just going to get an offender bender. They're literally going to like either die or break something, beyond repair possibly. And I was like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. So I don't know if that's really true, but it makes sense to me and everybody and most motorcyclists that I have interacted with do tend to know the law better than average person who's just a regular, Honda Civic driver. But anyway, so that's motorcycles. Yeah, I
All
didn't know
right.
that Sturgis was going on right now. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, always the first weekend of August. So it's the I mean, having lived in Wisconsin for a long time, like yeah, it's one of those things that you just it's common knowledge at a certain point, you know.
Yeah.
But anyways, the this is ADP. We're usually a podcast about video games, entertainment, you know, movies, life, anime, a little bit of everything in between. But this time we're going to be a little bit less on the news front, and we're probably going to be a little short on the cast today, which is fine. Uh, some of us are getting over being ill, and so we're recording just a tad bit later than usual. But we're going to push through, and if not, well, Nick will die trying.
Yeah, I'll just I'll I yeah, I'll just die.
I mean, it'll make for good content, but then we get demonetized. But good thing we're not making any money,
We're
so it
not
doesn't matter.
monetized, so I mean I guess we're
I
not
will I will I will launch
demonetized.
my new platform upon your passing, and that Patreon in your name to help fund my kids' college fund. There you
God,
go.
I don't know. I don't know about any of that. I don't even know. I guess I have no power over any of that. But yeah. So that's the
You'll be
Patreon.
gone, so you won't care.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll just haunt
I'll give
you,
your
I
parents
guess.
a cut, and then they'll keep them quiet. Uh, all right. Well, what do we have for the news?
Yeah. Okay. So, Game Informer magazine is shutting down after 33 years. And this Game Informer since what 2003 or something like that, 2002. I just read about it and I already forgot, but they have been owned by GameStop since then, and and they are shutting down. I don't know when GameStop is finally going to close their doors. I feel like they just never cease to amaze how they're able to continue to live on. But I wanted to mention this because not that I've really picked up a Game Informer in a long time, but as a middle schooler, Game Informer was the magazine that my friends and I would go to, the one that we at the time trusted the most. We were into like Nintendo Power and like PlayStation Magazine too at the same, at that time. But we knew that we quote knew that those were biased, uh, and Game Informer was like probably biased in like a different way or whatever. But I don't know. They they seem to have the most broad, like the broadest like view of games. They were still mostly console games, I feel like, but they had like the broadest view of games. And I think every couple of years, they had like the 100 best video games of all time, which is kind of a silly argument. But as a middle schooler, seventh, eighth grader, it was always fun to like look at it, and they had a lot of really good, promotion articles about whatever Final Fantasy or Call of Duty was coming out, and there's just like a lot of material in there, a lot of ads and stuff too. But I remember picking up the Game Informer pretty regularly, maybe not every single month, but probably 6 or 8 months out of the year for a couple of years there. And Yeah, I just had a lot of good memories from it, and it's just really sad to kind of see it be gone. But not like I've done anything to help since the mid 2000s. But anyway, so I just wanted to state that and kind of say happy trails to Game Informer and say that they will be missed.
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with Game Informer, mostly because I shilled for Game Informer,
Oh,
working at GameStop in the mid 2000s. So many subscriptions, so many. Yeah, having to push those to make quota and stuff like that. It's though granted, I did like their magazine. Their magazine was actually pretty solid, and
yeah,
there later on after I left the company and just like I would say what was it 2010 2011 era, they had a really good like podcast presence, and I'm drawing a blank on the podcast host off the top of my head now, But like just it was a yeah, as you know, it was really well done. It was one of the first like it was a really just good group of people who were able to talk. And then unfortunately, they killed like the entire podcast and video crew like line of their company was like 5 years ago.
Yeah,
So
I
when
do
they
kind of
did
remember
that,
that. Yeah.
that was pretty much like the like the death nail. Like it's just like, okay, I can't believe you just did that. You're crushing one of the most popular parts of your industry.
And the most future
And
looking. I mean, the magazine, it's like nobody really reads magazine articles, I guess just web articles, but I feel like that's not the real reach. I feel like the podcast would be the real reach and the future, but whatever.
yeah, and it was just like I said, it was just very disappointing to see that go. But at the time, you already saw the writing on the walls for GameStop as well. Um, I mean, granted, when I worked at GameStop, they were already pulled out of bankruptcy twice, I think, and like thanks to at that time Barnes and Noble, which is
Yeah.
for those of you who don't know, is a bookstore that no longer exists, or if they do, it is very small. Uh,
They still have
but
Barnes and
yeah,
Noble around,
okay.
but I don't think they're
All the
doing
ones near
particularly
us
great.
shut down. They literally have tore down the most recent ones nearby us.
Maybe.
And
Yeah.
yeah, anyways, physical bookstore who had like more or less parent company or like helped pull out GameStop from bankruptcy on multiple occasions. And it was, but yeah, Game Informer, they were some of the better outlets, especially when you're comparing them to at the same time, if you're looking at like the early IGN and stuff like that, way more reliable. But
Yeah.
it's sad to see him leave, but at the same time, it's like
Yeah.
it was inevitable. You can't really see a world where a print magazine alone is going to thrive, especially one mostly based off of subscription sales through, GameStop or a physical store,
Yeah.
and that was the main reason because they told it like, oh yeah, number one subscription magazine and number one magazine, blah blah blah. I'm like, yes, but that's because you have how many stores shilling for you, and getting everyone. Granted, there was good benefits to it. They really like if you bought into the whole trade in and buying used and all that, I'm like, yeah, it paid for itself. But also we were kind of brainwashed into thinking, I'm like, it's a bad idea to trade your games in, but if you wanted to buy something for a little bit cheaper, by all means. um so yeah, it's
Yeah.
a lot of people regret giving up their collections of everything, for sure. And yeah, unfortunately, I think GameStop is one of the biggest reasons why Game Informer, you know probably just kind of petered out the way it did. And they did it in such an unceremonious way. They're just like, everyone come in and you're all done immediately. Um, and it's like, here, collect your severance and here's your information and you're out. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a shame. So
I know Dan Reichert on Giant Bomb had talked about his his early days in the gaming industry, being a part of Game Informer, that was quite a long time ago. He was probably writing for the magazine, maybe when you were working at GameStop, possibly when I was reading Game Informer in middle school. Um, but I wonder if I still have those, or I don't think I do. I bet I threw them all away. But I'd like to go back and look through the ones I have and see if I could see any names that I recognize now in some of the articles. I'm sure there's some people who are still around, but he's talked about it before, and he seemed to have a really good experience. I mean, of course, like what else is he really going to say? I think he did say there were some tough times, but uh, but he kind of cut his teeth there. And I think they had a lot of fun in those early days at Game Informer. And then I feel like some of the other people that he's met and some of his other stuff since then kind of came out of Game Informer as well and moved on to bigger and better magazines and publications. But yeah,
Ben
um,
Hansen, I think that was who I remember, at
uh,
least at the time I was paying attention to them
Ben
for
Hansen.
their yes.
Okay, okay.
Ben Hansen. So I'm pretty sure he went off to do his own thing after he got let go, and yeah, he's quite interesting. He's well informed. I guess no pun intended. But yeah, he's no, it was very much the face of the company. I felt at the time for most stuff in like early 2010 2011 era. So yeah, he's uh, hopefully the people from here, something tells me they're going to be picked up by other news outlets, and or you'll be seeing a lot more news related podcasts popping up. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I'm sure something's going to rise from the ashes on this. But yep, bon voyage.
All right. What else you got for the news?
Next thing, Nintendo's I don't know what you'd call it. Basically, they're reporting that their profits are down 70% from last year. There's no Tears of the Kingdom or Tears of the Kingdom like game that has come out this year. There's no Mario movie that's come out this year. So everybody knew that the profits were going to be down. I don't think they expected it to be down this much. But yeah, 70% down from last year. It's one of those things where I can't tell how much it's fabricated, how much the news media needs us to believe that the sky is falling with Nintendo. If it's just selling, selling clicks online. I don't know if Nintendo is really worried about it. I don't know if shareholders for Nintendo are really that worried about it. Everyone knows the Switch 2 is coming. But it's still, I think people expect it to be down, but not quite that much. Still, Nintendo does expect to sell, I think, 12 million Switch units this year. And they're already at 2 million as of, the end of July or something like that. So they'll probably sell more in the holiday season, but no one really understands. No one really, seems to think that 12 million units is really realistic. But if they did manage to sell that many, they would be getting pretty close to the all-time sales numbers for the PlayStation 2, which is at 155 million as of 2012. And then what is his name? Jim Ryan, former CEO of Sony, with the article I was reading that said that his parting gift was to say that PlayStation 2 actually sold 160 million units by the complete and total decaying corpse of its life cycle was finally over. Apparently, he oversaw marketing or whatever during the time of PlayStation 2 or something like that. But anyway, so yeah, just profits are down over at Nintendo. I mean, I guess they know what they have. They are Nintendo. They're going to do things their own way. They're not really going to care about anything or anybody else, and the way anybody else does anything. But profits being down this much, it definitely can't. It definitely can't last. So we know that the Switch 2 is coming, and if we didn't already know that, then I think that this would be that much more clear that they would have to put something out, because it's hard to imagine them surviving very long like this. But I don't know. Yeah, so that's kind of the long and short of it. Yeah, that's the news.
All right. Well, yeah, like I said, we're keeping it a little short this week. We have here for what we've been playing. All right, so I got a chance to play a game on the PC, but it's on pretty much all platforms. It's Nobody Wants to Die. Uh, I don't know if you're aware of this one, Nick.
I've heard of it.
So,
I've heard of it.
okay. So this was one of every now and then, I try to play one of these walking simulator like adventure games. Something with a decent story, but also a little easier on my time.
Mm,
And it's like some people dislike the concept of playing something like a walking simulator. I mean, I just recently had played the what was it? The previous uh, oh goodness gracious, the oil rig one. Shoot down. Yeah, I'm forgetting it was on Game Pass. So
Sorry.
Still Wakes the Deep.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. So Still Wakes the Deep is less of a game than this.
Okay.
So what Nobody Wants to Die is about is it's a cyberpunk like Blade Runner future, but with a noir aesthetic, like noir black and white film like aesthetic to it. So you are a detective who is uh, trying to get back to active duty status, uh, and after an accident, and you're currently working off the books as a favor for the chief. And it's very much like I said, it's like you're driving what looks like a 1930s, 1940s uh, car, but like with instead of tires, it's has like hover thrusters essentially, and he likes to watch detective black and white films, but you're in New York, and it's as layered and dystopian as you possibly can get. Can't see the sky, that kind of thing, and he occasionally does the old detective monologues to each other. The game ends up doing some really nice things that I like. It has, it's a pretty straightforward game, but it has, as far as the detective agency concerns, when you come to a crime scene, you have the ability to inspect the location and uh, discover new clues, new information, or you can go straight to their bullet point objectives. And you then can essentially reassemble the crime scene, and you kind of create like a bubble of space, and you rewind time, and then you kind of scrub it back and forth as you're looking for clues and start piecing together like what happened. And there's a couple of crime scenes to do this through. The gameplay, if I was going to have to explain it like other games, would be like what Remains of Edith Finch,
Hmm.
um, or the more like The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. So that one, it's like very much you know uh, a straight point A to point B story, but that one let you like explore the area and kind of had a certain ambiance to the place. But you're finding random clues and putting together random puzzle pieces. The the whole time freezing mechanics works a lot like the brain dance in Cyberpunk 2077, where you're kind of piecing together the puzzles and looking at different angles, trying to find certain clues, but
Okay.
maybe not as in depth. And or kind of also like Remember Me is an old uh, PS4. I think it was PS4 game. Might have been PS3 actually. Now that I think about it, uh, I only remember that game because it was set in France. It was a unique one, and it was the last time one of my good friends was ever excited about getting a pre-order. They were excited about it. I'm like, "Are you sure you're going to be excited about this?" And after that game, they're like, "Yeah, I'm not pre-ordering anymore. That was not worth my full price."
That's the game. That's the game that broke them.
Yeah, I was like, most people, ironically enough, don't remember the game. Remember Me. It wasn't bad by any means, but um,
The irony.
no, it was just yes, exactly. Um, so I mean, as a whole, the game is pretty short. So I would say uh, it's more like I think I ended up spending like 6 hours in it, um, and I explored a lot of options. There are as one of these games goes, you don't want to talk too much about the actual story details because it'll spoil a lot of this is a kind of a one and done playthrough.
Yeah.
You probably can play it twice because there's certain options and choices you can make. Then you can just choose to like you can kind of be a jerk or be agreeable, and there's certain you have a voice on the other line as it were as your advisor that you're kind of working with, and yeah, it pretty much is a really fun. I personally like the aesthetic. It reminded me they did certain things really well, like the music. It
Mm.
kind of hit that. Um, it had noir like vibes, but also had like the Blade Runner like saxophone kind of like tone in the background. So it did everything. It was very. This was for me a much more enjoyable game than Still Wakes the Deep, but that's because I personally like the setting. Um, Now, Still Wake the Deep had a much better uh, voice acting, but it was less of a game in my opinion. This is this I said like it lets you hunt for clues, but it is very much a we're gonna point out the next major objective. Like you gotta take a photo of that or go check out that, and it might be scan a few things here. But if you want to look for extra stuff, it's there for you to look for. Then not a whole bunch more, but then when you later on, it lets you like do the whole cork board concept of like we're going to put the clues together to try to find the motive and try to find how these things are connected. So it poses the question, whatever said, like how are these people connected, and then you can try to assemble the clues to see which one fits into the puzzle piece. But if you actually don't know, you can brute force it by just drag dropping each clue if you had to, and then be like, all right, I found the answer. So it's not the most in depth, and unfortunately, uh, all said and done, it doesn't give you as much freedom as I personally like. I feel like they should give you more of a chance to screw up. Essentially, it's like a little more something like almost Phoenix Wright. They let you interact and make a fool of yourself. This one was pretty much like, no, you pretty much know how you're gonna have to do this, and but still, at the end of it, the story was pretty fun. Almost made me want to play it again just to see kind of how the other end goes. But I mean, at the same time, you might as well just look it up online, unless if you're like
Yeah.
trophy hunting. But then if you're trophy hunting, you can hard save like three quarters through, and then just make another choice set of choices at the end to probably get the extra endings. But honestly, it was worth my time. So I was happy enough to play it. I recommend it. Unless you absolutely dislike a
That's,
cyberpunk or noir detective thing, and if you're not a fan of walking sims, then yeah, don't. But if you want a little something that's a quick play, that's a unique story, uh, I would totally give this a shot. So,
yeah,
and it's beautiful. It looks awesome.
I'm not like a big fan of walking sims, but I did look at the game a little bit. I do remember kind of hearing about this game. I feel like in one of the expos or whatever that happened in the past year. Anyway, because I feel like I did have a little bit of interest in this. I do like the cyberpunk aesthetic. I do like the noir aspects as well. Um, it does look like a pretty. It does look like a good game, or it is a good looking game rather. I would, and then some of the gameplay stuff does seem kind of interesting. Like there's a little bit more to it than just walking around. But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. But yeah, probably the walking simulator aspect would put me off a little bit. But then again, 6 hours is very digestible in this day and age. So yeah, it sounds like a good dip in for if you just want something kind of quick.
Yeah, I mean, the the other thing I'll have to say about it is, it kind of it does a good job about not giving you all the answers and also not explaining everything. It lets you figure things out on your own. Certain
Mm.
things there's um like any detective, the old noir film, the detective has some sort of troubled past, and they kind of filter some of that in as you play, but they don't blatantly just say everything. So there's certain things that you're like, oh, this is totally a thing that is here. It's obvious if you just look at it, but at the same time, if you're not paying attention or if you're so hyper focused on point A to point B, like you could miss a couple major like character points, I guess is the best way to put it. It's not really much for the actual gameplay itself, but as far as like you putting together the narrative of the character and uh how they are the way they are, you're like, oh, okay, yep, totally. I can see why certain things they're broken in a certain way.
Mm.
Um, but it does a lot of neat things as far as playing with the whole cyberpunk future aesthetic, and it's a very dystopian setting. I mean, the base, I guess I could have should have left with it led with this was the despite your detective coming back on duty, but this is also a world where your conscious is transferred from one body to another. So they don't really without trying to explain too much of it, they narrate certain parts of it in the very beginning. Like you can now transfer your mind indefinitely, so you can pretty much become immortal. Um, and if you get killed in a car accident, they'll just take it's a
Last save point.
MacGuffin. It's called it's a Icarite, but like in other things, it'd be like a data drive or something. But they take your brain input thing and put it into a new body, and so like part of the uniqueness of it is like you get a letter in the mail saying, "Hey, we're having a I forget what the exact wording is, like a familiarization party for my husband. So hey guys, come over so you can see what his new body is. You don't want to essentially you don't want to pass each other on the streets like strangers. You
Mm.
got to keep up with the fact that as if you don't talk to people for a while, maybe it's like old moving addresses, right? If you move to a new address and we're not pen pals and I move to a new address, we're never writing to each other again. Well,
Well,
if you switch bodies
is
and
it
I switch bodies, how do we know what we look like?
yeah, so you wouldn't know who you know. But is it like you could be like you grew up like a white male and then you could want to change bodies into like an Asian female or like a black dude or something like that, or just like a totally different.
So there's essentially it's mandatory subscription service to this immortality deal. And it's
Okay.
a underlying theme of like you literally have to subscribe to the concept of this, and if you can't by a certain age, uh, they will put your memory in a bank, and then your body goes for auction, more or less. Um,
Well, okay.
yeah, it does some really neat things with the rich and powerful and how they live in in the refined lifestyle. And it's if you ever seen like Altered Carbon or anything like that,
Yeah.
it's kind of certain themes like that, but very much a more simplified version. But yeah, the idea of very much a standard cyberpunk trope of just being able to swap from body to body to upgrade yourself as because but also at the same time, if you're poor or if you like you might get stuck with a disabled someone who has like I think your character his new body has like scoliosis and he's allergic to like a handful of things.
Oh, okay.
So because whoever had the body before him was like a prior junkie, so he
Mm.
has like certain reactions and stuff like that, but he can't afford to have a nice premium shell. So it's kind of an interesting idea there.
Okay. So yeah, it does sound like I'm hearing some of the regular themes and some of the tropes of cyberpunk, which cyberpunk kind of blends with noir. It kind of fits noir underneath its wing a little bit and borrows a lot because noir fits in with what cyberpunk is trying to say in general. But themes of identity are always a big part in cyberpunk, and rampant capitalism or like social Darwinism, and stuff like that are always a part of that as well. So yeah, which are all cool things about cyberpunk, I think, or at least interesting themes to explore in cyberpunk. So that does sound pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the one of the things that got me was the fact that because of the noir aesthetic, they have like, you know, you're they have a lot of those. They're in a cyberpunk city. You can't see. There's literally the whole city above you. Can't see the sky because there's other complexes and whatnot. But there's also a zeppelin just flying around because why not? It's just
That might be more of a
it's a
nod to the noir aspect of it.
that's exactly it. I mean,
Yeah.
like your vehicle, the vehicle you're riding is super, super old fashioned. Some of the, art and propaganda, as it were, around. So they do a good job, and I think it fit. It was the obviously this team isn't the biggest team, but I hope they get to do other stuff like this and maybe more flushed out because, but for the time for it's a little time investment. I think it's worth it. It's not terribly expensive. I think it was like $25 or something like that. Um, I should double check that just so I'm not saying the wrong price.
Mm.
But yes, I mean,
It's not going to be very
um,
expensive no matter, no matter what, because it's only 6 hours, more
yeah,
than
it's
likely. So,
25 on Steam, 30 if you get the soundtrack bundle.
Okay. And
So
I'm sure it'll be discounted heavily in the next Steam sale.
yeah, I mean, and I really think it's worth worth looking into, especially if you just watch the trailer. If that piques your interest, then give it a shot. It's worst case, it wasn't a terrible price. I like I said, I enjoyed it. So, all right then. Um, Outside of that, I haven't really done much else. I started dabbling into that Zenless Zone Zero,
Mm.
but I'm still pretty early on. A buddy of mine and we're both you know trying to play. We're playing it roughly around the same time, so we can get. We're trying to see how it differs between opinions, but
Hmm.
it's not really a multiplayer game, or at least not that we've seen. It's just it's an interesting gotcha style mechanic, and the art is very flashy. It's very much a Persona inspired game, very anime.
The
My
anime
spouse came
aspects
in.
of it do look good. No, I'll say. I mean, from what I've seen.
My spouse came in during the loading screen and had just a giant tube TV with like running commercials as it's loading in all the information, and she's like, you playing five? And I'm like, huh? She's like, Persona 5. That's this, right? I'm like, no. I laughed. I'm like, and she's like, oh, it's not. I'm like, no, but I could totally understand why you would think that
Yeah.
because on the surface, it's very much a wink and a nod to that style. And yeah, so far I'm liking the combat, but once again, I'll give more of an in-depth thing next week. Uh, but I am liking it already better than the First Descendant, which was a shame because I was kind of excited about First Descendant. It just didn't hit me at all the way I was hoping it would.
Yeah.
So, all right, uh, and you hadn't really you've been dabbling in VR, but you haven't actually had a chance to really do much of anything. Just little tidbits here and there, right?
No, I've been playing a couple different games and just haven't gotten in enough to really be able to talk about anything more that I haven't already talked about before. Because I mean, I am gonna jump back into Beat Saber and Synth Riders as well. But I have talked about those before, so it'd probably be a while before I would actually have enough more to really talk much about that. But I'm gonna do some more different VR games. Talk about those later, and then I've just been sick. Is a lot of it. I've been sick. I don't remember how much I've told you this, but like I had a fever this starting on Thursday night, starting on Wednesday night, I guess, and it kicked in really hard on Thursday night. And I've been getting over that, and then the past 3 weekends prior to that, I had some sort of single day cold. I get these like weird colds in the summer sometimes, and it's just like one day, and it's been one day every weekend. So my weekends have kind of been getting shot with that, and then there's some travel in there as well. So anyway, I'm gonna be able to get back on video games at some point, but I have been able to watch quite a bit of different stuff. So yeah.
Though I do have to say, because when we were talking about being sick, I just kind of smirked because it just reminded me, since we didn't record on our usual time, and uh, usually when we do the podcast, my wife will put the kids to bed, and so because we weren't, my son was confused and he's just like, and I'm like, oh, Nick is sick, and he goes, oh, and so today he's like, expecting me to put him to bed. I'm like, no, no, your mom's got you tonight, and he goes, it's like, Nick better? I'm like, yes. And I'm like, it's like, is he coming over? I'm like, he lives far away.
Yeah, I don't think he
Every
understands.
now and then he asks if you're coming over when I'm talking about you. He's coming over? I'm like, no, just that one time. He might come next year.
Gosh. Oh, that makes breaks my heart a little bit. Yeah, he doesn't understand the
They like
concept
you.
of
I don't know
Chicago and
why,
all.
but they like you.
Yeah, I don't know why either. I just kids, they're just programmed to just like whatever's around the most often, which is why we are screwed up in all the things that we like.
Yeah, well, the sense of self-preservation maybe not the best there, but no, like they,
Is what it
like I
is.
said, he enjoys your company, and he was just like, Nick's coming. Like he every now and then he'll ask, and I'm like, no, lives very far away.
Yeah, he's not gonna be
If we
back.
had to drive, it would be like a whole day. You know, you don't. I know you don't understand the concept of time, so just really, really far away.
Yeah, time. Yeah, probably not there yet on that.
All right. So what have you been watching then?
So yeah, um, I recently started getting back into horror. Um, I don't know, like horror is one of those things I really like, and I just never it can build up. I just always am like, yeah, I'll watch that later. Oh yeah, I'll watch that later. So I've been making an effort to just watch a bunch of different horror stuff. And
So
it's
is that
fun.
why you haven't been sleeping and staying up and getting sick?
No, I'm able to sleep pretty well because honestly, the horror that I do watch is um, it's not that good. So it's I guess what I'm saying, it's not bad, but it's not so good that it keeps you up. Like that's what really good horror does. Really good horror is like messes with your brain and makes you go, dang. And just like when you close your eyes, you just can't stop thinking about it. So I haven't seen anything quite that good in a while. Um, but I've been kind of going through some different things that have been on my list a little bit and adding some stuff as well. I got a recommendation from a YouTube video about this one horror property that I'd never heard of before, so I explored it. It is a Australian film from the year. It was put out in the year 2008, called Lake Mungo. Um, and I heard it was good, so I went and found it online and watched it. Um, and um, it is it is a interesting film. I think that it's a film that's made more interesting, um, being 2024 now than it would have been in 2008, like when it was released. I think in 2008 it would have felt very much of the time and not interesting because everything in it is just sort of like, yeah, bro, that's sort of just the way life is, except for the creepy stuff that you're trying to get across. Um, so basically, it's only has like about an 87-minute runtime. It's not so it's not very long, um, and uh, and it is slow paced. So I think that those two things balance each other out really well because if it was any longer, then the pace would just feel too slow and it would not be very good. So I guess basically what this movie is about is it's about a family, um, and it's about as the movie starts, it's explaining how the sister in the family. So it's a mom and dad, a older brother, and a younger sister. And the older brother is probably like in his late teens, and the younger sister's maybe in her middle teens. I don't remember. I think they do say, but anyway, the younger sister has passed away. Um, and the interesting thing about this movie, I would say, is that it is all done in a documentary style. So it is obviously fiction. It's a work of fiction, but it is done in a mockumentary type style. Um, which I think serves it really, really well because they're able to do a lot with a lot with a little. There it is a very low budget appearing at least is a very low budget film, but it still is pretty good. I would say, especially with what they are able to do. Um, so the movie is about this the daughter that has passed away, and sort of the things that have happened since she passed away. Um, and I'm not going to get too much more into what else it's about because there's not a whole lot of a lot of movie there, so I don't want to spoil anymore. of it, in case anybody wants to go see it. Um, I will say that it's probably, if you're into horror, more than like a slasher person would be into horror, then I would say it's probably worth your time because it is short and it is unique. But if you're not into short, unique experiences, then maybe not. Um, it is also just pretty interesting because of sort of the time that it was made. It's a film. It's a film that came out in 2008, but it's about events that happened in 2005. So, so that's how they kind of get around. There's no iPhones. There are phones that do take video, but they're like really terrible video, and they take really terrible, quality pictures and stuff like that. But that kind of helps with kind of the mystique of it as well. And like, hey, we don't have this, we have this grainy footage, and you kind of can't see, but then you kind of can. Um, there's some things that they don't expect you to catch as you're watching it that I did catch, and I'm not usually a person that catches those kind of things. So I think anybody that watches this stuff probably would, but that's kind of neither here nor there. Um, the actors in it, I don't think I'm not really familiar with a lot of Australian actors, but I've never seen them before. Maybe the teenage boy. I don't know, but they're probably mostly unknowns. But they do a really good job. They do a really good job selling it. There's not really any overacting, um, and overall, it's and I'm kind of droning on here, but overall, it was pretty good. It was a pretty interesting movie. And yeah, I could say it's probably worth your time. I think um, I think I'd probably give it like a low seven, high six. If I had to be really mean to it, I think maybe like a mid seven is where I would give like a 7.4 somewhere in there. Um, but a lot of that is kind of based on the I don't know that I think is probably aged pretty well. I think at the time I would have been like that movie sucked, but being that it's 2024 and kind of where we are now and kind of what looks good overall and just the writing in general, I think it holds up because of that. So yeah, it was interesting. Kind of random recommendation on YouTube that ended up panning out to be pretty good. So yeah, I liked it quite a bit.
All right. Um, yeah, I'm gonna quick. I was able to watch uh, a couple seasons of anime and one movie. So I'll quick talk about the anime first. Um, just because I kind of back up what I say, where I'll give pretty much any anime a shot, and I watched a little bit of everything. Uh, they happened to drop from last season. They decided to dub the entire season of a boys' love anime. It's called Cherry Magic 30 Years of Virginity Can Make You a Wizard. And the concept of this one is kind of silly, but it's a guy who's turns 30 and gains as a virgin, gains the ability to hear other people's thoughts. Um, now it's a common like joke trope in anime where if you are 30 and you're a virgin, they just call you a wizard. Um, and I believe if you become 40, you become like a sage. Um, so yeah, that's a lot of manga and stuff like that have played jokes and different puns off of that. Now, in this one, it's essentially, yeah, the guy starts hearing voices of just everyone he ends up making contact with, and so like he hears everyone complaining on the way to work on the subway, and it's just like, that becomes like obnoxious to him to the point where like he's like, I have to go in the elevator to go to the office, and this is gonna suck. And he has his mentor or like senpai essentially, uh, happens to run into him in the lobby, and they stand next to each other, and he realizes the mentor, who's also a guy, decide like is very much infatuated with him, like over the moon. And he's like, that can't be right. This he is like the pretty guy in the office. He's the Ike man essentially. Is the um so he's the local hottie, and so this is essentially him trying to figure out like if he's just misunderstanding the situation, and then essentially as they hang out and things happen, he realizes that this guy is a really good guy, so forth. It's I was mentioning to you beforehand that this Japan has a bad habit of like, you know, you're you're straight until you're gay. Essentially is
Mm,
how it's always a lot of times looked at, or is like a lot of these stories go with, um, you know, one person is like, I'm going to convert you, like I like you, so I'm going to convert you into being gay, and it's very much a standard rhythm with a lot of these. It's it's very rarely like we're both gay and we're gonna have this story play out. But as a overall like story, it's actually pretty decent. It's funny. It's charming. Yeah, it's very easy to watch. There's not much else to it. I would say if you aren't, it's your standard like romantic comedy essentially.
yeah.
And he deals with the dilemmas of like, should like, am I cheating by being able to read his thoughts type of deal, like am I being unfair in this relationship, or at the same time, like I said, it's very much trying to discover who he is, what he feels like. And this actually has a complete story. It's not just just like, and we're ending it with like another day in a life. It comes to a like what I feel like is the complete end by the series, the season. And there's also slight spoiler. He has a friend who's a novelist, and the person pretty much is also in the same boat as him. Ends up being he ends up turning 30, and then he gets these powers, which makes you wonder like, is this a play going on? Is everyone now who's now 30 somehow magically going to get these powers, or has no one ever spoken about it? It's just weird. But anyways, so his friend's like, I didn't believe you at first, but now, and so his friend has his whole little mini sub arc, which was like, it was just interesting on itself. So yeah, like I said, it's as far as romantic comedies goes, or if you're interested in like a decent BL story, then I would say it's not bad at all. It has some funny moments, and uh, but I've by far watched much worse anime this season already. Uh,
Okay.
so, uh, yeah, I mean, like I said, I honestly thought I enjoyed my time with it, so I would give this one a shot. The name is stupid, but it's a clever pun on it's a clever twist on a standard trope. So, all right, the other one, um, I didn't realize this was turned into an anime. Uh, I guess I never looked for it, but it's Kimi ni Todoke, which is from Me to You,
Mhm.
and season 3 just dropped. And I was just like, wait a minute, what is this? And I went ahead and read the synopsis, and I'm like, wait, I know you. I coincidentally watched a Japanese TV drama like when I was living in Japan. We didn't really watch a lot of TV because like a lot of the TV series was you had to like it's hard to get started from the beginning. You're usually jumping midway through. But my wife and I just happened to turn on the TV and see this. Um, it was the start of a movie, and we're like, okay. And it's like these kids running around, and uh, it's like essentially this girl talking about how she was kind of like ostracized by other small children, the elementary school kids, because her name it was close to Sadako, which is like the main girl from The Ring, and it shows
Her name
her
is like
that it shows
Sawako, right? Or
yeah,
something.
Sawako, I think. And
Yeah.
so it shows her at the like a jungle gym kind of playground, like popping her head out of this little like playground equipment. But she pops her head out, and her hair is just draped down and straight black. And so all the kids look at her popping out of this hole, and they all freaking scatter like ants. Um, and so that was like almost one of the beginning intros, and we're like, all right, let's give this a watch. And we watched the whole thing. We're like, this was pretty good. This was like it was a decent, movie. And then I just happened to talk to my friend in the States, and they're like, yeah, they talked about watching this, and I completely forgot about this, but they were talking about watching this anime, and they described it. I'm like, wait, we just saw the same thing, but I just saw the live action version, and you saw the anime, and I didn't even think about asking with whether or not it was in English or not. And I'm assuming it probably was, considering the fact that this is season 3 out already. But it was just really funny because I was like, two different times, two different lifestyles, and we just happen to come across the same piece of content essentially, uh, just different formats. And the story, like so, I just binged the entire first season within like a couple days. It's 20 like 5 episodes, so it's a really it's cute. It's you know this girl who, like I said, she's more or less treated as an outcast because everyone is scared of her, and they think she's some sort of like haunted being because she just looks terrifying. She's just really sweet, really polite. She tries to be like courteous, but everyone just misinterprets her emotions. Like she smiles, but because the way she smiles, everyone looks at it as a creepy, sinister grin, opposed to you know
A sweet
a
smile.
welcoming one.
Mm.
She tries to like move out people's way. It's like, yeah, you go ahead, but they look at it as like a menacing, like you're going to your death, and or they
Mm.
bump into her, and or she picks up something for someone, and you're like, here you go, and everyone's terrified. So
It,
essentially,
it,
she goes to high school,
it,
meets Mr. Popular,
okay, yeah.
and Mr. Popular is just genuinely nice to everybody. Uh, but she slowly starts to, she gets some friends. She slowly acclimates to uh, a normal lifestyle. But people, like I said, I'm in season 2 now, and it's just like the next year. They completed 1 full year of high school. I'm assuming they're second years. I honestly never caught what year they were originally.
Yeah.
But since there's a season 3, that would make sense if they were now second years in season 2.
Mm.
And it's a steady enough pace. They don't seem to drag on too long. There was this most recent little bit they dragged on just a little bit longer than I'd like. Uh, but that's the beauty of having it all at the fingertips, is like you don't have to wait week by week.
Mm.
And yeah, it's just generally really nice. It's a cute little story. You like almost all the characters are likable. There's not too much angsty drama for a shojo manga. Essentially,
Mm.
shojo being the girls' comics. The only negative to it, I guess, is if you're not a fan of shojo art style. Um, so a lot of girls' comics of a certain era, they all look very similar. There's
A lot of pink, a lot of sparkles.
Yeah, there's the same. Yeah, also the characters are typically a certain type of lankiness, or there's certain aspects to the drawing style, mouths, facial shapes. Um, just
Um,
for a
the
long time, like the male characters in the background, their pants were always kind of slightly bell bottomed.
oh yeah.
To give them more of the skinny physique. But
Um,
it has a charming art. I think the anime is charming. I think
the
the art style is good.
the first season I didn't watch. I haven't watched this yet, but I have seen screenshots from the first season, and it was a certain kind of animation. The drawings seemed to be, I don't know, I don't want to say normal, but more normal compare of the time. And then the season 3 gave me a One Piece sort of vibe. Not that not that it's using like straw hats or anything like that, but like some of the way the lips are drawn and the eyes and the shape of of the chin and stuff seems to have a little bit more toward the One Piece aspect. And I'm just wondering, is that like Toei? I'm just wondering who's animating this, and if it's maybe a similar studio or something like that.
Student, this is the production IG.
Okay.
So they, yeah, I think they've done all of them, but they kind of are all over the place with what they do. They've done like the FLCL, they did Psychopaths.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they're behind the Ultraman CG. That was on Netflix. I liked
Well,
season 1 of that.
it's probably nothing then. But I just noticed there was a little bit of a marked difference between what I had seen from season 1 and what was going on in season three. So maybe after you get through
So
season three, you'll
there
be able to tell me more about that.
yeah, I'll let you know, but I know, like, some of the other like, one of the other, her 2 friends are kind of Yankee-esque. One is more of the, you know, stereotypical dumb tomboy, character, like, more brawn than brain, and the other one is supposed to be the glamour gal, kind of, like,
Mhm.
not excessively gal, but, they both are more tan and they have lighter brown hair, um, and so that's kind of with her in particular, they give her more full lips, I guess is the best way to play it. Like, they actually draw the upper and lower portion of the lip a little more, so it kind of does look a little silly, compared to it's just a little jarring compared to the others,
Mm.
uh, but not too bad. I actually found that the ending credits, animation, I think it was to season 1, um, was unique. It was a particularly, like, just different art style. Every now and then you'll see anime do that. They'll, like, end, um I think I forget which one it was now, but it was a couple seasons ago. It was, like, 2 this guy gets isekai'd and his sister, she's a complete, like, brocon. She follows him into the, like, afterlife, essentially. She gets isekai'd as well,
Okay.
and she becomes super OP. She's, like, S tier strong and everything like that, and so she's just like, "I'm here to protect my little brother." Uh, it was a meh anime, but the ending credits to that was amazing. Like, just the animation quality and the music, it was just stunning. I'm like, if you were anywhere near this ending credit quality, you would it would be I would just be floored. But no, it's just like all the budget went straight to the ending. Like, I have no idea. Um,
Sometimes it goes that way, man.
but like, yeah. So, anyways, it's very much different art style altogether for that. But uh I don't know. I think, like I said, I do find at least season 1, and season 2 so far, they're pretty much the same, but they were probably back to back, as it were, when they were released. Um, yeah, because it shows. I think season 1 air date was um 2009 October, to uh, March 31st of 2010. So
See,
I
I
mean, it's
knew that
not.
it was earlier. See, yeah, that's like 15 years ago. Um,
I thought it was 2011, is what I thought it was.
okay, you said 2014,
Well,
but
I said 2013, 2014 is when I saw the live action,
oh, okay, okay.
and so I wasn't sure when it got dubbed over.
But
Um, so yeah, I wasn't 100% sure of that when
but still, that is really weird that they've had. I don't know when season two came out, but like 2009 is when the first season came out, and now somewhere in there is season two, and then now pretty good distance between one of those and this and season three. Um, just interesting
yeah,
why they're
because it was
deciding to revive it.
2011 was season 2. 2011 was season 2. And then following the end of 2011, there was a special, like a little one-off or
I-
something like
I'm
that.
just
Also,
wondering
winter.
why they're deciding to revive it now. And bring maybe
Um,
I wonder if there's like a long hiatus by the mangaka or what. I don't know.
Yeah, not 100% sure on that, but like I said, I'm kind of glad this resurfaced because it made me rewatch the season 1, and it was totally worth it. I you know, I honestly think it's pretty solid for any shoujo manga. It's a solid romantic comedy as well. I mean, it's just more romance than comedy, I would say, but it's just a sympathetic character that generally you pretty much like, and the art gets silly, I guess is the best way to put it too. It's like a lot of times they're done in almost a chibi-esque fashion.
Mm,
Um, so like when the some characters get flustered or something like that, they kind of go into uh almost like a weird doll form. Like it's
okay.
think like a round a round dome, like an oval, but with like almost peg-like arms and hands. It's really interesting that the fact that they do these weird chibi motions, but honestly, I think it works. And it's yeah, it's totally most definitely a recommendation if you're remotely interested in anything like I said before with the genre. And I'll end up finishing this one out for sure. But once again, I completely forgot this existed. Really thought that I'm not a big fan of Japanese acting. Their TV, live action stuff. I think a lot of it's really bad, actually, like for dramas, for TV stuff that's on TV.
Mm.
But that TV drama that I saw, yeah, it could have been a theatrical release. They just showed it when I saw it. They just showed it on TV, but it was solid. I think a lot of Japanese acting though is very much the kids are taught like or the for the teen dramas they're taught to overact, and like they don't understand. I think it's more just for show, and so like what you know, it's just over the top, and so that's
Well,
it kind of doesn't really
it
work out
comes
too well
a,
as far as from a Western point of view.
a lot of that comes from kabuki and no theater and opera and stuff. They just have a different uh, what do you call it, legacy, acting legacy. That's what I think, but it is hard to parse as a Western viewer. But yeah,
Well, they also yeah, as far as comedy goes though too, they're still in it's a country very much into physical comedy.
yeah,
So they still love the slapstick. So it's just their acting methods are very much different. But at the same time I think it's their way of emphasizing drama as well. Like with a lot of that team acting is like, well, if you to emphasize something being impactful, we have to scream and be over the top and just flail more. I mean, you see that with I think that was one of my critiques for the Alice in Borderland. Um
yeah. There's some of
like
that.
because they always have like certain psychotic, you know, unstable person as an archetype who's always just like I'm crazy and you can't, you know, like and that always bothers me because they're like I'm unhinged because I'm pretty much telling you I'm unhinged and you better watch out or I'm a badass because look at me I got crazy eyes and I'm like okay
Yeah, it's a little
uh
bit childish in the way that it's kind of communicating some of that stuff.
so but
Yeah.
you know this one like I said I happened to see it and I'm like I actually enjoyed it so but going to something else I watched that I enjoyed was the I finally got around to watching that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and you know, it's from last year. I'm a little late to the game on this one. Yeah, it was really solid. Obviously, everyone else said so as well, but I happened to watch. You know, I like the first one. I've talked about how I'm not the biggest fan of the animation style to a certain point. Like it worked for the first one, but that choppiness within you know they I feel like in this one they actually have less of it, more fluid. It still
They
had it at
cleaned it up a
times.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
Uh,
why they have to do that or what. I did hear for the first one that they were able to save a bunch of money and do everything a lot faster
it
because
rendered it a lot faster because they only did a couple it's less key animations.
well, but it's
Yeah.
like a different kind of there's a different method and a different technology, and so like Pixar was like, wait, how the heck did they do that over there? So they're definitely made some sacrifices, but yeah, I guess they just figured out, hey, we can cut this corner and it really doesn't hurt it enough to kill the movie, and we can save so much more money on it. I don't know, but yeah. Anyway, go
I
on.
but I felt like when it did happen in this one, it actually made it like when at certain points it felt like it hitched more. So it was very much like playing a video game and having it stutter on you. Because at certain moments, like Miles's mother comes in to talk and they go to like a face to face, but then it starts to judder as it's going. I'm like, it just felt really off to me. Um,
Hmm.
and I've come to, like at first with the first movie, I was like, oh yeah, it's an artistic choice. I can accept it. And now I'm like, you know what? I don't think I'm a fan of it. Actually, the art quality is good, the assets, but the pacing that like I said, I kind of want to see someone take the time to do like frame interpolation with this and fill in the frames through AI to make it completely, you know, 24 frames smooth.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I think I'd like you to show me what you're talking about at some point, because like I think I probably just got used to seeing it by the time that you're talking about. By the time that came up, because I do kind of know what you're talking about with like
This is
the
splattered throughout the entire movie. I mean, it's not as bad as the first one, but the first one I felt was more consistent. So
okay,
therefore, you kind of rolled with it.
you got
Um,
in the rhythm of it.
and but this one, it was like it's more it was more minor. Like, and I spoke to my wife. I'm like, yeah, we felt that it was not as noticeable because it was maybe less gaps. But then every now and then, it would just happen at certain points. Because of that, all of a sudden you went the timings between the two.
Yeah,
It just felt like there was some sort of hiccup. It felt like said if it was a video game, I feel like my game would be like hitching on me.
okay.
And uh,
But anyway,
yeah,
you liked the this one overall.
that's the negative. That's yeah, it's the overall, I thought it was really solid. Certain things, with as all movies, like, just I found was ridiculous. Um, way too for people trying to keep their identity secret, way too much taking your masks off in public, uh,
Yeah,
especially with high rises all around you, changing just randomly in public. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and just like, at least Superman. The old joke was Superman could spin around really fast and blur himself in a phone booth. Also, there wasn't a thing called a smartphone, so
mm,
people couldn't take random photos, so back in the day. But yeah, other than those, just a couple of minor silly stuff. Uh, the story was, like I said, a lot more solid than I expected. Though since you've seen this, all right. I'm now going to ask a question that's going to be a slight spoiler. Uh, so the whole crux of this towards the end is the fact that they like pretty much like Bioshock, how every Bioshock needs a lighthouse. They're like, well, the captain needs to die, uh, and they're like, because my whole thought in the beginning was there Spider-Man needs to have an Uncle Ben situation. It doesn't have to be Ben. It could be
oh yeah,
a literal father. It could be someone else, but like someone close to them needs to pass. Uh, and he already had that. He had his uncle die in this one, in the first movie. So like he covered that basis. But then in the sequel, they're like, yeah, but you saved the the Indian Spider-Man. You saved the captain, and then the captain was supposed to kick it because he's supposed to save a kid and die in the process. Um, and Miles is like says Gwen, like, your dad's a captain. So like she's like, yeah, and she's pretty much like, I've accepted the fact that he has to die. Um it was and then
no, that's no.
yeah, she completely was okay with it until because like she was afraid to go back. But
Well,
she
that's
didn't
why they
try
weren't going to be
stopping it
together, is because
because so when he's in the 20, Spider-Man 2099, you know universe or whatever,
yeah,
with every
the
other
Spider
Spider-Man.
Hub.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, he ends up. That's when they explain to him the situation, and he's like, "My dad's gonna be captain. I need to go home and stop it." They're like, "We're not gonna let you do that." And but one of the questions he asks, he looks at Gwen and he says, "Your dad's captain," and she's just like, "Yep," you know, and she kind of accepts the fact that, yeah, like, she accepts the eternal doom that you can't change fate type of deal.
no, 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 no. I
Um,
don't think that that's not the way that I remember it. I remember it being that for them to get together, her dad would have to die, and so that's why they're not, and so that's why they decide to get together at the end. Is because they're like, we're just gonna beat fate that way. But her,
no,
but like her, like Spider Gwen doesn't have to have the captain die. That's like a Peter Parker plus Gwen thing.
no.
I mean, it's
um,
been a few months since I've seen it, but I have seen it twice.
Yeah,
So
but because Miles specifically points out that, like, there would be no reason for, like, they're saying this is your fate. You have to pretty much accept it that your dad's going to die, and that's what. And he's, obviously Miles is rejecting it, and then goes ahead, and that's when he brings up to Gwen. She's like, "Your dad's also a captain," and she just kind of she doesn't give him an answer because she's like, this she's it's the like resolve of, I've given into the fate, as it were. That's why when the dad says, I quit, like, the moment they get reunited and he says, I quit, that means he has now, thanks to um her getting the courage to go back to her like her home, her time. She talks to her father. Um, he since he quits, he's now avoided the fate of dying because he quit being captain, so he's not going to die.
Oh, that's what her dad did.
Yes.
Okay.
Because when they finally talk, because she goes back and she tries to grab the photo of the book in the drum kit, and then she goes in to talk to
I
grab it from the front
you're
table.
no, there's you're no, you're not explaining something right. There's not. I don't even know what you're trying to get at here. Like what are you like? What hole are you trying to poke?
The fact that like every Peter Parker or every Spider-Man has to have an Uncle Ben-esque thing. The so instead of Uncle Ben, it was
His other uncle.
the Prowler.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Prowler.
it was yeah, so he died. So the whole thing is that they're not the whole thing is now everyone has to have a captain who dies or something because the core event that Miles prevents in was that the New Mumbai,
Yeah,
when he saves the captain from getting killed, and because of that, that's when the whole area is imploding upon itself. The black hole essentially forms underneath, and the city starts to disappear.
yeah,
So, and then that's why they're detained. They tell him, like, yeah, your dad's gonna die. He has to die. You have to wait it out. And that's the whole reason why he's fighting to get back because his dad's about to become captain. And because his dad is a captain now, is projected to die on day one of being captain. And that's the flash of the spot, like the building falling down on him and everything.
yeah.
Um, so but that has to happen. So the captains have to die as part of their timeline, like
Okay.
as connecting, and that's why when he mentions it to Gwen about her dad, so I'm like, why does that have to be a thing? Like, what it made more sense that it was just the Uncle Ben situation. Your uncles have to die or someone close to you. That's fine. Everyone seems to have had that to that point. It's
Okay.
someone close to them. It was Peter. It was Peter for Gwen. You know, Peter Parker died. I think it was Penny Parker, the anime character. I think it wasn't her dad who died in the original story. I forget now. But I think she says it was her dad. But everyone has someone close to them die.
Hmm.
That's how they essentially start to become Spider-Man. But now they need to throw in, and another person has to die in order for us all to be connected. And I'm like,
See,
I felt that was a little ham-fisted there.
I mean, I thought that so like Spider-Man 2099, what's his name? Marcus? Anyway,
Miguel,
Miguel, that's it.
isn't it?
Yeah, Miguel, he was doing something like he was being vengeful. He was trying to control the 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 chaos web or whatever, and so he was like, this is going to be this way because it's supposed to be this way, but he didn't really know. It's just based on everything in the past.
It's the only reason why
But
is because
he's like, it's like,
he interfered with a different timeline. And like I said,
but
this is the
he's the
weak part.
bad guy doing bad things, and that's why he was gonna
He's
try to make
not
the
though.
captain
That's
die.
the thing is he's saying we can't change fate because he tried changing his fate and he imploded an entire universe because of it.
Yeah,
Um,
according to him.
because
Yeah,
he because in his yeah, well that's the thing in his timeline, in his original timeline, his family dies. He goes to a different timeline that happened to have he died, so his family's up for grabs. So he took the family,
yeah,
and he pretended to live that life, and because he's not supposed to be there, the timeline imploded. And so because of that, he's trying to control everyone else, uh, and no one else is given examples, but in theory, it must have happened once or twice because everyone has full faith in him that this is the situation. So they don't bother explaining anything else.
yeah. There's only so much
Which was kind
runtime. Yeah,
of yeah. There's only so much time in a movie, but at the same time, I'm like, well, if you're gonna make this a two-parter anyways, you might as well go the extra mile and explain it. So that's why I thought was the weak point. It was the fact that like, yeah. So the whole thing that's now we have to have a new threat, especially if we're extending out to the new movie. We can't just stop the bad guy, but everyone, like, you have to listen to us because your dad's gonna die, and you can't save your dad because the captains have to die. And I'm like, that's weak. That's the only real why that doesn't make
Well,
like
the
it's stupid
logic
part.
in
Granted,
that
he's gonna
was,
save his dad in the
but
end,
like that,
but
the point is that like the logic in that is supposed to be weak. It is supposed to be ridiculous. Like that's why you're on the side of Miles Morales here. It's because it's like, no, that's not necessarily the way that things have to be. So like, yeah, they're wrong because they're the villains and they're supposed to be wrong. But like they're crazy.
every Spider-Man, every Peter Parker, every whatever, they're
But
all in agreement except for
they're all following
uh
Miguel, and
yes, but
Miguel just is
they
strong
know the
harm.
alleged truth, and they're like that's the thing
But
is they
there's
don't
not that
they could
much
have
proof that there's not that much proof for what Miguel is saying. It's just the way that it typically goes. And so Miguel has the power. Miguel has this shining example that he can point to, which is also like, hey dude, you were also meddling in a universe that like you don't actually belong in. So it's not like it was everything was going along like normally. Like you're not supposed to be there, and maybe that's the reason why. Like it's I just the thing
so you're
about,
saying that all other Peter Parker, all other Spider-Men are completely dumb and just blindly follow faith because Miguel said so with one example.
well, there's a lot of people in this world that do a lot of dumb shit because that's the way it's always been done. So it's
Yes,
really
but
not that far
a large
fetched.
majority of the Spider-Men out there would be somewhat on a different level, but smarter than your average person.
But also, it's
They
already
wouldn't
happened
blindly
to a lot
follow.
of them. So there's nothing to do about it. It's already happened to most of them that are there. Like it's this Spider-Man is younger, I guess, than a lot of the others that are coming along. So I mean, like yeah, like he's only been in it for a couple years. Most of the Spider-Men are Peter Parkers. There's not very many Miles Morales.
Well, there and other, and who knows how many others that aren't. But that's the thing is, I think it's silly that everyone like they would have had to have other examples. There's no way everyone else that many would blindly just you said so and you have one example. Sure. A lot of them are of science based. Like we need more examples,
You
more
mean a lot
tests,
of the
more this that.
Spider-Man would ask for more examples than that?
Without a doubt.
Okay.
There's no way that your average Peter Parker science nerd would just be like, cool.
I mean,
You said so. That's the scientific theory right there. One time is all you need.
but like if it had already happened to that one, then like how much argument would they really
But
have?
that's still not an argument. It's saying just it happened to you. Yes, it is a common thread. Just like they all had an Uncle Ben experience. Saying, but if the Uncle Ben experience is what leads to them being Spider-Man in one shape or form, or they just become Spider-Man. But the Uncle Ben thing is what makes them heroes, I guess, to step up because they already have a power, and they're doing a thing. But that Uncle Ben experience is what makes them uh truly try to step up to be a superhero and not just your average person with superpowers. And so
And it's like I don't know, man. Like it's
I just can't believe that all of them would be like one person says so,
I
we all
mean
believe you.
I mean Jesus, dude. Like it's a
Jesus has
multiverse.
nothing to do with this,
Like
man.
it's a multiverse, dude. It's like I mean, that just seems like just a really silly place to stop suspending disbelief. It's like you have to have. I mean, you have to have a
You're talking
story.
about people of science, yes, but once again, it's like I feel
The
that
men
it,
of all these men of science.
you're
I
also talking
just
about
don't think it's really
so you're
worth. I mean,
no,
it's
it
like you're
it
watching the
what tell
movie.
me
Like,
with
what
it.
else do you
Tell
want,
me this.
man?
Why can't they just give a few extra examples and why does we just have to go based off of what one person says for
Because that would be
the one thing that
boring.
doesn't
It
follow
would kill the
the
pace of the
storyline?
movie. I mean,
The
you could
movie's already doubled. It's already two films at the end. They completely kill the pace at the end. Like I thought the movie was going to end at one point, and then like, and we're going to extend. Like they all to their city hubs. They all do the hero poses. They're like, here we are spanning the city. and then they're like, and we're gonna roll it more. I'm like, oh, hey, cool. Are they actually gonna finish this thing? And like, nope, psych. We just led to try to draw out the drama, and like instead of
Well,
having
they wanted a
three,
cliffhanger.
yeah, they could have still had the cliffhanger. They could have had the cliffhanger like where everyone's separated, but like no, they had to show Scarlet Spider being taken out by Gwen, uh, and then they continued it more so that Gwen could not only talk awkwardly talk to Miles's family, and it's just like she's like so she breaks, she goes into his room, walks through the front door, doesn't explain anything, just like yeah, so I just crawled in through your window and uh, yeah, your son's doing some stuff. I don't know what's going on with him. Bye. I'm going to leave out your front door. It's such an awkward scene that makes no sense. And then she has to then assemble the crew at the end. Um, and I'm like, all right, assembling the crew at the end makes sense, obviously, because you have to have your hero team versus your bad guy team. But it was just like you also showed you taking out one of the bad guys. It's just like so now the team of three that were on the hunt is now a team of two. Now the team of two became a team of one because her mentor, I can't remember her name now, watched her get away. So she's like, I'm not going to do anything because So now I'm like, you've lessened the threat. There was a bigger impending search party. Like, oh, these guys are all these more, there's a bigger threat. And they're like, no, it's only one guy now. It's
I
just Miguel.
guess I don't know,
Um,
man. Like I don't know why
so
you pick
I felt
apart
it
like
ended
good
really weak,
movies.
and that was
It's just it's like it's. I mean, it's
I'm
like
sorry. I don't like to just be like, I'm just gonna go ahead and click off my brain and just,
I
dip my
I
face in the
think I
popcorn.
think that's why you like slower paced things because there's because they're like there's like there's a lot of slower paced things that you really like, but but like plot wise they're pretty unassailable. It's like this happens and this happens and there's like exact perfect explanation from one thing to another, but it's not always it's just slower paced, and so it's not as the same. It's not as exciting. I'll say there's a lot of things that you like that are not as exciting, and I
You
guess
could have
that's where
made this
you
movie better
value.
by ending it 10 minutes earlier. See, there's a difference between directing and editing, both of which failed on just those small points to make it
See,
even a better plot point.
I really disagree with you because I think it ends in a point that really makes me want to see the next movie. Like
I guarantee that if they cut just a little bit earlier, you would still have the same amount of
I don't think
I
so,
want to see the
man.
new movie.
I don't think so because I think it would have been like the part where they assemble and they're like going out. I'd be like, that's where I thought it was going to end, and I was like, okay, that would have been like good enough, I guess. But I think where it did end, where it was like a realization of what was really going on, was like, oh dang, this is crazy. That is that just made me really just go completely like, holy crap, this is next level. But I don't know.
That's more or less one and the same point because they just took the time to. I mean, it's one of those things that they proved that since Indian Spider-Man is there, uh, that his world is safe enough for him to just abandon because they must have fixed the plot like literally the plot hole where like the whole city's collapsing in because of saving the chief because he's like apparently has the time to leave his universe to help out Miles did him a solid. His world is collapsing. They must have stabilized it and now he can help out. Well, if that's the case, the team can then stabilize other worlds. They've proven that. um
Yeah, but they had to like
so
break the rules in order to prove that that was possible. Whereas Miguel is like running everything, saying like, "No, that can't happen," and no, and it's like, wait, hang on a second. He's not right about everything, you know. So like, if
Yeah,
he's
armor's not saving this situation though. That's the
but like
thing.
if he's
It's
like
like
the first to set that system up, and then everybody else like has already had their thing happen to him, and every other time he's like proven right, then I mean it's kind of like the Minority Report thing where it's like Minority Report, like the precogs, like work like 100% of the time. And it's like, well, yeah, we're just putting away people that may or may not have committed murder. So yeah, it's working 100% of the time. Uh, but when you have one that breaks that that idea, then now everything else was like, okay, now everything has to fall apart because we see that the person that's perpetuating that could be wrong.
Yes, and the simple part to fix that is just to give a few more examples. That is literally it. You give a
Okay.
few more examples other than this one extreme weird example, because how many other people are now taking over new families and living their weird life and then having those universes collapse? The only example of a chief dying, and which apparently all chiefs must die, is the fact that they reference this, when Miles saves the one guy, and he was able to do it in theory because he's an anomaly. And then he mentions, other than Miguel saying, yes, your father's going to die when he becomes chief. The chiefs have to die, and then him mentioning Gwen's father, and and Gwen's father was destined to die until she talked to him, had a heart to heart, and he quit. Um, and then you're like, oh, cool, Gwen. Now you can you're relieved. Gwen's father's going to live. Now she has the courage to completely put all her effort into saving Miles. Um, but now, since we know Indian Spider-Man's back, we know that they can stabilize. So that the moment that happened, we're like, "Hey guys, actually, we fixed this problem. We solved it." Uh, kind of, I know it kills the momentum. We still got to kill. We still got to find Spot, because that dude's gonna wreck everything else. But the idea of having to, you don't have to have his father die, and therefore everyone can now work on a common goal: catch the bad guy, not just common goal: catch the bad guy and let the dad die. So
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
that's,
know.
like I said, that's where like a simple, some minor editing and minor directing, just, and it wouldn't have been a whole lot. Like I said, it's a 2 hour and 20-minute movie. I think that's with credits. So
Yeah, probably like
I mean,
210,
you
something
you
like
could have
that.
just done a little bit more, and that would have been fine. But like I said, the everything, like, for the most part, everything else was pretty good. I only pick apart the few things because out of a movie that's so good and so solid, it's those few things that really what in a mediocre movie, it would just be like, okay, well, there's all sorts of stuff, so you can't really fault it. But when something is better, therefore the few things really are more noticeable. And
Okay.
it's
So
like,
you're saying, yeah, a small crack, even it shows up a lot more in a really good movie because of the rest of the movie's really good.
yeah.
Kind of.
And I mean, like, it's not going to stop me from seeing the third one, that's for sure. I mean, granted, my lifestyle, I'll have to wait for it to come out on streaming or something. Eventually at that time, I might be able to go see a movie, but I haven't seen a movie since, I think, Solo, not Solo. I'm sorry, what it was before Solo, Rogue One. I think Rogue One was the last movie I saw.
Wow. That's wild.
Um,
Uh,
yeah, I mean, kids
wow.
will do that to you. Uh,
Yeah, I guess that's a different thing.
li-
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. Like, do you think that they could have fixed it with a couple throwaway lines with like
Uh,
the with
just
like
granted, they would have had to animate it, and that's the problem.
okay.
Like, they want to spend more time animating, because it would have been a couple lines, and as fast as everything else goes, like whenever they do a new intro to a new Spider-Man, it's
Hmm.
kind of almost a joke, But like, I'm the Spider-Man of this universe, blah 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 blah. Like, he really quick, they could have went, example of X Spider-Man, X universe or something, or this universe, this happened, and that's the implosion happened. This person, implosion happened, or like, it's just a couple examples of implosion here, and they could even cut it like how they do, like, split screen. They did that with a couple of the action scenes.
Hmm.
You could have just been like, it's when Miles is objecting, he's like, no, this has happened to boom, 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 four different examples of people trying. At one point they stopped the core event, and then all of a sudden, them all imploding or something, showing it was simultaneous doom, and then be like, that would make it more believable, while Miles is looking at everyone in disbelief, and they're like, yeah, like I said, he saw Penny Parker, and she's like, it's like, Gwen's like, yeah, old man, Peter's like, everyone's so quick to give in. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Like, there has to be more examples. just not shown to us.
Hmm.
But we're supposed to be kept in the dark because that makes it more believable. It by tricking us or fooling us, it makes us easily. You don't want the fans, the people watching, um, because the argument is, um, the life of few for many, and
Hmm.
so but we need to be rooting for Miles all the time. We need to be manipulated to always agree with Miles because Miles is our hero. We
Yeah.
They can't have us going against him. And I'm like, we're I mean, some of us might be easily willing to accept the gullible, but at the same time, I'm like, it doesn't mean you can trust us that we want the hero to succeed. Um, and being this movie, I highly doubt they're going to go ahead and being they're going to go ahead and kill off his father at the end of it. They're going to find a way to make it succeed because uh, since Miles is the anomaly, he's the golden boy. He's their messiah essentially. They're going to make it so he does something that no one else can because he is literally the glitch in the matrix.
But
You know,
it's the hero archetype. Like that's what I mean. That's the
but
story
you can
that
have. But I'm
survives.
saying you don't have to twist our arm to make us blindly have faith and follow this person. You can have it. You can give us the facts,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
then
So I
go.
guess I guess you're saying I guess you're saying we have all these Spider-Men who are already their own, who are already supposed to be heroes. So it's sort of silly to have like the hero among heroes. It's like these are already, the hero archetypes, so they're having plot induced stupidity put on them in order for us to have our movie's hero be the hero.
And like I said, it's only because the rest of the movie is pretty solid that it makes this one just that much more annoying because once again we have to then think everyone else is just stupid and gullible. And I'm like, that part is just foolish. You can give us the facts, and yes, we may some people when between stuck, like the old Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, right? Or whatever, like when you have to save, or any of the other Spider-Man, when like, oh, you have to save the people on the train, or MJ. It's like for the movies, they generally save both, but not all the time, right? Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you have to let you let Tom or Garfield, the Amazing Spider-Man. I mean, they Disney let her. I haven't seen the movie. I just saw the newer Tom Holland ones. So like, but he
So
lets Gwen die in that one,
spoilers
right?
for yeah, Spider-Man.
I said spoiler well before, but no, yeah, for other stuff, my
Big
bad.
spoilers,
So yes,
immediate spoilers. I mean, but at this point, yeah, you're in for it. But just for that one, yeah.
sorry, mate.
He doesn't
I
let
said it
her
out.
die. He fails to save her. He
Okay,
he he probably makes a choice that I can't remember exactly how it is, but I know that he has time to save her. But I think it's because he just barely has enough time to save her because he made a choice to help people, but he thought he could do both, and then she dies.
and extra spoilers for Spider-Man video game. Oh, did you beat the first Marvel Spider-Man?
No.
No, you didn't play it at all. Okay. Then I won't spoil it for you then, I guess.
Okay.
But there's a choice that's the same thing. It's the life of one for the life of many. But they literally choose, like, okay, well, we got to choose the many. And
I,
that's kind of what happens.
but I mean, like, I mean, I really don't think that I really think that you have a little bit too much faith in Spider Manatee because like there's a lot of examples throughout history of people just you know like lemmings just following the leader no matter how smart or how good they all are. Like I mean I hate to like bring up like Nazi Germany, but like Nazi Germany was was pretty much that. You have a lot of really smart
No,
people.
Spider-Man is actually the third is one of the S's in the SS, is what you're
The
saying.
Fourth Reich, yeah, I'm just saying that like it maybe it's a little bit far fetched, but also stranger things have happened. Um, stranger things throughout history of people um, following in ways that you wouldn't think that they would. I mean, there's a particular there's plenty of things. Let's just stick with like ancient history. How about the Soviet Union? Um, Stalin's Soviet Union, Mao's regime. Um, Honestly, China right now in a lot of ways.
So, but at the same time, there's still a lot of people against it too. So, yes, certain people have power.
Who never
You're
say
correct,
anything, who never say anything
but
or
there's
really
also a
act
lot of
against,
people who do and get silenced. So,
who never act against it. But like maybe, I mean, what you could do if you
but
really wanted
comparing
to.
this, your comparison is really bad right now. I'm
No,
just
it's
saying,
actually
it
really
doesn't.
perfect. It's actually perfect. You could actually do a spin-off like episode or whatever of other Spider-Men who have been like, "Hey, I don't know if Miguel's right," and then them being silenced. I mean, you could definitely fit that in there if you wanted to. There's room for that. So, just because they don't like show everything because they can't show
But if that
everything.
was the case, if Miguel was silencing people who were immediate threats, or like 'cause Miguel would be smart enough to realize, especially through the magic program AI algorithm that he has, they like, yeah, this person's more than likely not going to comply. I wonder, maybe
I
the
don't know
punk
if that.
Spider-Man
I don't know
who
if
comes
that.
from
I don't know if
anarchy.
that. I don't know if that AI algorithm says that it would do that or not. Did it?
No, but like they magically predicts a lot of the anomalies and
Okay,
like
so it
so
would. Okay, well, that's not
it
really stated
it magically
in
predicts
the
when,
source
yeah, so
material.
quite a few things. So you can easily you're telling me you can't predict like the Spider-Man from this universe of
I'm saying the
Anarchist,
source
like
material doesn't say that it does. So it just like it it's just plausible to me because I am familiar with a lot of times where humans have been really
your
stupid
example is
about
so
things.
sad that that's like you're like,
There's
well,
multiple
also all
examples.
these plausible anything, almost anything is plausible. So just because there's a chance, you're living in the Marvel timeline where the what if series is like canon, all of it. And I'm like, uh, you're telling me that these people who like they're like, all Spider-Men are lemmings except for the one who happens to be the one that we're watching. And I'm like, that's, I mean,
Well,
once again,
in this
what
branch of the
to avoid this
multiverse,
like literal half-hour discussion we've had about this, all it would have taken is like a couple extra panel scenes and a couple extra
but
saying, hey, we
I
have more
think that
information
what
given
you're
to you.
suggesting breaks the rest of the story down.
It it doesn't.
I think
It
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 would open
explains.
up more plot holes. I think it would be like, well, then why did that, and then why did this happen? And I
You
think
just want
it.
to do this button pointing, aren't you? But yes, the by giving more examples, just a few more about that exact case, about this is how why it has to happen because we have definitive proof. His only proof is saying, "Hey, I pretended to be someone else in a different timeline, and it collapsed the whole thing. And so now you have to listen to me." And everyone's like, "Yes, we have to listen." That makes far less sense.
Okay, so you're saying that we need more examples of everything collapsing. Okay, yeah,
The
because
cause of the collapse is, so the whole crux of second half momentum of we have to stop Miles from from anything is because we now have to add an extra layer of not just the bad guy, because they need to up the ante. Stopping a bad guy who could potentially screw up every multiverse or every universe, that's not bad enough. We have to make it personal. So we have to have someone in his family die. So we're gonna make it his father, because in some of the Miles stories, his father dies. So let's do that. We killed his uncle. Now let's threaten his father, um, and so that's how they're going to up the ante. Well, how do we write that in? His father's going to be chief, so we're gonna make all the chiefs have to die. Um, but why? Because we said so. And how are we going to prove that? Because Miguel pretended to be his
I know.
self in a different timeline, and therefore it's coming. That's the example of the collapse. There's, like I said, all they had to do is just show a couple timelines where trying to stop the chief dying, cause a catastrophic failure. But they don't. They just say the only proof of the failure is apparently India, where they stopped it because they stopped it in time for they proved it at the very end where like he's there to help out with the A team selection, um, and that's it. That is literally the only time they've
I
proven
I
that
still I still
stopping a
think
police chief
I,
is a
I
core event.
I still think that it's a two-sided um it's the movie is coming at it from two sides to pincer these Spider-Men into this way of thinking. And the first way is that it just always happens. It's like the sun's coming up tomorrow, and the captain in the life and the Uncle Ben incident is gonna happen. So like it just always happens, and it's just the way that it is. So don't fight against it. But we do have one example of when somebody did fight against it. And when somebody did fight against it, it was even worse than what we thought. And that also preys on Spider Man's innate nature to want to save everybody. So we have like those two big forces, even though it's only one one incident, it's also like it just never goes that way unless it magically has. Also, like they don't want people going into all the multiverses either. So when in our movie, which is silly that oh here it comes along the first time, but it has to be a first time I guess for our viewing pleasure, that in India Spider-Man it doesn't work out that way, then everything, that's where the cracks start to show, I guess. Which I guess you could say
Here's
that's
the way
when.
that you can make it better, like by showing those edits, by showing, like I said, I'm just going to use four as an example. You can do three. You can do, cut it in thirds because they showed some of the action scenes that way too, as well. So three different examples of three different universes where they try to stop the timeline or they try to save the captain, causes an implosion. Boom, done. So now everyone has concrete proof that like they have examples. Whenever someone's tried to stop it, it's like you can even have them showing to try to stop an Uncle Ben situation or something like that, and it causing a catastrophic failure, whatever. But you show that, and then what you do is that helps reinforce the fact that this is the momentum. Everyone's trying to stop him because they know what's going to happen. This provides more. Um, uh, it's more of a realistic threat because right now you're just going based off what Miguel says. But by having other examples, you're like, yeah, these Spider-Man are really trying to stop him because this is a legit thing. Now you set up for the sequel
But the threat is not.
that
But
because Miles is an anomaly. Because that's the whole point is Miles is the anomaly. He got bit by a spider that didn't he wasn't supposed to be a Spider-Man. That world is now screwed over because Spider-Man 42 or Spider 42 was never there to bite that universe's Spider-Man. Now because he is that weird anomaly, he can now do things that he can now do successfully beat the timelines because that's now your argument is he
so now he
saved
really is
Miles is the one
Neo.
who's Miles saved the chief, not the Spider, not none of the other Spider-Men saved the chief in India. It was Miles. Miles can now do the things that no one else can because he is the X factor. He is the crux of whatever. Um, but so all you had to do and that's literally the big reveal. But you have and you but you so you solve both problems. You have the fact that everyone now knows how big of a threat it is and why. Why exactly are like all these Spider-Men chasing after him, causing public damage, busting cars in a space like a moon rail system, all that stuff. Why they're going through mad havoc trying to stop Miles, other than being told by Big Boss Man, go
But
stop
then
him.
but then you have to
You know,
explain why Miles is somehow special.
they explained to him. They already said it. There was no extra dialogue. Why he's special. Why he's different. They already said it in this movie.
What did they
He's not
say?
supposed to exist.
Oh,
in
okay.
this movie in this movie he's not supposed to, they said he's not supposed to exist. Miguel says it all. He's bitten by a spider that's not from his world, that universe. Because of that spider not being there, that the hints to why at the very end the big cliffhanger of being caught by
But
himself.
but we have Miguel. I mean, consider the source. It's Miguel who is wrong because like the way like what you're kind of talking about would kind of make it man versus nature rather than man versus man or man versus society, which is what they're going for.
Miguel's
They're
not wrong though. At the very end, he winds up in that universe where there is no Spider-Man.
but Miguel is wrong because Miles is supposed to exist because Miguel can't because Miguel doesn't have the authority to say who should or shouldn't exist. That's
It
the
wasn't
point
it
they're
wasn't
trying to
Miles
get
it's not
across.
Miles' fault. It's not Miles' fault that but Miles as a Spider-Man is not supposed to exist. It was the Kingpin because they caused the rift in time or in space. They pulled the spider. That was which also I don't remember that scene in the original movie, but I'm like where I'm trying to figure out how Spot knows because I don't remember them being aware that a spider leaked over because of their experiments. So Spot already knows that he's like, I'm
Mm.
the one who made the spider that bit you, and I'm like, how did I don't remember that part anyway, so that I found that to be a really weird thing because you think he'd automatically know he's Miles then if he's like, my spider bit you, like, and it was because of that spider. But anyways, uh, no, that spider was never supposed to leave that universe. Kingpin rip open a hole in time. That spider came in to a universe that already had a Spider-Man. Now they had two Spider-Man. And because of the interference and because the OG Peter is getting distracted, be like, hey, you're like me, blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't focus entirely on the fight. He dies. Universe corrects itself. Now that universe still only has one Spider-Man. Um, and now a universe that was a radioactive spider is missing from the end whatever Prowler Miles universe. I don't think it's necessarily Universe 42, but I'm just saying Universe 42 because of the spider was 42. It's a different. I forgot what the name of the universe was.
Yeah.
Um, but anyways, so Universe 42 has no Spider-Man. Miguel says so, and that's why at the very end, when Miles reveals himself, I figured it out the moment his mom went, "What?" Because I paused it and I turned to my wife. I'm like, "He's in the spider. He's in the universe the spider came from because she doesn't know who Spider-Man is." And she's like, "Oh, like I solved it just before the big reveal." But that's the whole thing is, um, the universe where Miles' dad dies and Miles becomes Prowler. There is no Spider-Man because the whole city is on fire. Um,
Hmm.
so, and that's because the spider that was supposed to be there never left there and bit Miles instead in the current timeline.
Right. Right.
So Miguel wasn't wrong about that. Miguel is, I mean,
But
not
the
saying that
point
Peter,
is
like
that
Miles,
the
Miles
point
exists. Miles is
the
supposed to
point
exist, but Miles
is
as
that the point is that Miguel doesn't get to say. That's the point of this movie and probably the next is like Miguel doesn't get to say. No human gets to say what is and shouldn't be as far as humans existing in any way, shape, or form. Like that's what they're getting at. So they're going to. I mean, I can see where you're coming from in a lot of the plot holes, the arguments about the plot holes, but 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 ultimately, I know that they are setting Miguel up to be wrong because they're setting all that up to be like, no, there's no one person who can say what this should or shouldn't be. It all just is. And sometimes it's better and sometimes it's worse, but we can fix it. But we can fix it in the end through the power of friendship, you know. That's what they're
Yeah,
going to get to
but that's the thing is,
eventually.
it's because of Miles' interference, Miles' influence. He's the one changing everything. He's the one who's getting Gwen to go back to talk to her father. He's the one who saves the Indian chief. He's the police chief. He's the one
Yeah.
he's the turning point, the focal point. And I'm like, and so once again, explaining your whole point about being like, well, giving a little bit more explanation of why supporting Miguel. There's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, it gives a stronger point for when Miles turns out to be the Messiah, because he is the super Spider-Man, and from him, all the others, he's going to cause the ripple effect. He is literally Neo, like, awakening other people and then changing the mind, like the mindsets of the masses. Because especially if in your Lemmings theory, that makes even more plausible that Miles is the one who wakens everyone up from being a lemming. So I mean,
I'll spot you
yes,
this. I'll
Miguel is the police force.
I
He is the dictator.
I, I
But then again, that's you can say that about any government, any law enforcement, or anything, being like, well, who are you to decide the laws when, like, we think it's an individual thinks it's different, and
here.
that's all it
I'll
is.
split the difference with you. Where you have your extra examples, but they're not true. They're faked. They're something. They're like, here's Miguel, and he has some sort of film or whatever of these other Spider-Men early on who tried to do something or whatever when there's only a few of them in the multiverse, and or in whatever universe they have as Miguel's 2099, whatever. And then and so they show that, and it's like, oh, it is true, blah, blah. Later, find out that those other things are figments, and it's only happened once, and only Miguel. I think that would be a lot to put in, but that would be maybe a middle ground that I would
See,
that would
in
both
your
convince more people to be on his side like you want, but also make it so it's not man versus nature the way that you're kind of talking about.
Yeah, but so you're just absolutely convinced that, like, Miguel is just straight up bad guy, and like he is just the super villain of
No,
the like.
no, I think that like every good bad guy, he's he becomes evil by trying to do something good. He becomes evil by thinking he's the good guy. And that is literally what he's trying he's what he's doing. He's not just evil for evil's
Yes,
sake.
no, but the thing is, once again, the thought, what they're trying to stop is not Miguel. It's literally like, because they're all right to prove that there are more collapses. They have a team established, like an emergency squad set up to counteract the anomalies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because the moment it starts happening, the moment all of a sudden the drop ship happens, door opens, everyone comes out, and they're like, and then the pregnant Spider-Man was like, hey, or Spider-Woman's like, you're coming with me, and he's like, woo, I'm coming to like he's all happy, despite the fact that the whole city is literally sinking. But the team literally lands, and they know what to do. They are literally scattered, so they have a actual, like, you know a fast acting team. So that means these happen. It's a fact, you know. So it's one of those things that I
Yeah,
think.
but
Now, granted,
we've
yes,
never seen another example of literally
it is. Yeah, but it has to, because there's a team. There's literally a team to deal with these things.
there's a
Um,
team to deal with a lot of things in the government, and it's not always a good. It's not always. It doesn't always mean it's like it's a good thing. There's, I mean, it just because
you're
there's
once
a
again, you're not defending your,
just
you're not
because there's a
supporting your, like, argument
bureaucracy,
here.
just because there's a bureaucracy to deal with whatever doesn't mean the
It's
bureaucracy's good.
it's like saying there's a hazmat team. You're like, there's a hazmat team. There's a lot of things that like, dude. There's literally a hazmat team for this situation, which proves that there's more situations. How hard was it to
It
say, hey,
doesn't prove
here's
that
some
there's more
examples?
situations. It just proves that there's someone who said that there's more situations, which is how teams like
Then they
that get
wouldn't know what
developed.
to do. They would literally just be sitting there with,
He
like,
told them
twiddling their
what to
thumbs.
do. He made it up. He said, "Hey, prevent this."
So your whole story, your whole thing is everything is a fabrication of Spider-Man 2099, Miguel's mind. All right, and because he's saying he's ruling his whole plot is to rule everyone by fear and to just tell everyone what to do.
It happened.
That's boiling down what you're saying. He's
No,
just so he's
no,
the bad guy. He's trying to
no,
control everyone on what
no,
to do.
no, no.
Okay,
He
then
had
why are you so obsessed
something
with the fact that
terrible happen to him, and
yes,
he thinks that that will repeat every time that that happens, or every time something similar to that happens. He thinks he understands the way that it works, but he doesn't. He had one bad experience that is different from Miles Morales. So he has the power. He gains power first, and he makes this blanket rule. And then everybody that comes into the multiverse and meets him, he like immediately explains it to them and says, "This is how it is." And they're like, okay, I guess." And then he formulates this team. He formulates all this stuff. And then he creates this world in which he is the king and nobody can argue against him. And then everything just like once there's like a bureaucracy, once there's like an apparatus, groupthink takes over and people just go like, well, um, this is the way that it is. So I guess I'm just like, it must be right. Like it's working so far, it must be right. When there really is no proof other than what one person says. And it's like, yeah, he probably had a valid experience, but like, what is what is the extent of his experience? Like, is it because things were changed in that universe? Or is it because he meddled in that universe? Is there something else that he did that we don't know? Like, but people are going along with it. And that happens all the time. That happens all the time. They throw people out of jury
All right,
duty.
I'm just gonna stop you here. I'm just gonna be like, okay, fine, because obviously, there's no way for you to see any other side other than what you want to see. But from what you're saying, uh, essentially, he is the first to discover fire. He tells everyone he created fire not by flint and and but by magic, and everyone's like, yes, magic. And so everyone mindlessly drones and follows his example. We'll go with that. We'll roll with the fact that there's only been the one time a collapse has happened, and because of his experience, and now he's fabricated a whole other incident with these chiefs and everything. That all that is just all his fabrication. Um, the collapse has never happened to anyone else before. The teams are all just faked and made up by him, and given the information by him, and he controls everything. So we're gonna go with that. So he's Sure. When the next movie comes out, we'll see how close that was to your theory. Uh, I think that's ridiculous, and that's where you're going with this as the crux of like the the more important villain of the movie. Because Spot is just the background character who's just tying everyone together, which is kind of the way it is. But I think you're way off base. I think you're absolute. I mean, I do believe that due to his uh due to his trauma, he is overbearing, over controlling, and trying, but it's also at the same time uh he is overbearing, uh but there has to be more examples. And that's I'm saying that it's the director's fault for not adding a few extra, like not even a full minute. You can do 30 seconds of example with 30 seconds of dialogue, boom, done, and and that would have solved the problem. That's all I'm saying, because I believe there is reason for him to to easily believe this, and I'm saying there has to be other examples that the other Spider-Man know about, because when he turns to them, they all just easily give in. I'm like, we are led to believe that Penny Parker and like the old man, Peter Parker, uh, and also Gwen, like these are his trusted confidants, the people who are there to save him at the end. Uh, but they feel that they I believe that they've seen stuff or seen the evidence that proves like, and they just give in to the realistic, they're more realist when it comes to like, yep, all right, we obviously these have tried and failed. This is how it is. Um, and that's why that, but granted, and in the end, Miles is the anomaly. He's literally of two different universes, and he will MacGuffin he will be able to fix the end because it's his hands or his cause and effect. Um, and I'm probably playing him out as too big of a hero in the grand scheme of the Spider Verse, but at the same time, I personally would not want him to be the Neo of the Spider Verse, because I think that kind of trope is done to death. But I think they're trying to market him as this next big thing, like as important as that.
Well,
So you're going.
he is
I'm
definitely like an outlier. Like he is definitely like an outlier because of the way that he became Spider-Man.
And so, like I said, that's and I'm because he was there, because of just his existence in Indian Spider-Man's world, he was able to save the chief. Because even if all the other Spider-Men weren't there, an incident would have happened where that Spider-Man would have to choose between one or the other, and he wouldn't have been able to do both. But because Miles is there, and Miles was able to do that, and then like I said, that's kind of the thing. But there had to have been more incidents, uh, and they didn't show it because it would have cost a little more money. I think it would, so that's where I'm coming from it.
I think
You're
it would
saying
have. I think it would have
everything is
opened a lot.
fabricated, everything's Miguel.
I think. I think it would have opened up a lot more questions. And I think
But it would
that
have been resolved tight as, like I said, I already gave you the answer, like the answer to those questions, like the questions that come up easily answer to the next one.
yeah. I mean,
I think
I think
I
you
think you're
could.
having way too much conspiracy faith in theory into Miguel. And
What you're suggesting changes the bad guy. It changes it from Miguel to the nature of the multiverse, and they don't want that to be the bad guy. I'm sorry, I lost you. You're muted.
now
Okay, I got you.
I don't know what's going on with this rig, but anyways, yeah, it's destiny. It's not uh it's not the nature. It's nature of the multiverse. It's destiny. It's things that are supposed to happen to Spider-Man. And it's the fact that Peter and the rest of them have given into this. Miguel's given in, and saying that we can't change it. Miles, being the new young one, he's saying no, I don't accept it. And like I said, I don't think they're just going to blindly accept it. Like a lot of them have suffered tragedy,
That is
but they would have
silly.
all
It is
they
silly
would
for
all
literally like 5,000 Spider-Men to like just be like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean,
But you're saying they're all manipulated by
is silly.
Miguel. Miguel said the one is hiding everything from them. He made a fake SWAT team to cover up the plot, the literally sinking of the cities, like the collapses. He's literally the mastermind. So from starting from good intent, has become this master supervillain, like Doctor Doom,
Because he thinks he's
Galactus
doing the right
level.
thing. I mean, this
Yeah.
happens all the time throughout history.
Once again, I'm not
There's
going to bother
there
arguing with it because you're
there's
going to try to. It doesn't
realistic
matter.
it's
It
real
doesn't
it's like
matter
more
because I
realistic
think you're
than you
wrong,
think.
and you don't think you're wrong, so it's fine.
But it happens
But
all
we'll
the
see in the next
time.
movie.
It's not even
Uh-huh.
me. It's just reality.
Yes,
People
yes,
just
yes.
people just like I mean people just go
You've
along.
already said this before.
That's like why like the I mean that's why
You're
the
literally
Japanese
relating
police
Miguel. You were
system
trying
has
to
like a
relate Miguel
98%
to.
conviction rate because like there's no way that they could be right 98% of the time. It's insane, but people just go along with it. It's like, well, the
What's
police
insane is
arrested
you're
him.
taking a
He must have
PG-13
done
kids
something
movie
wrong.
and relating him to a communist party. That's what's insane. You're taking a kids PG-13 movie, relating it to a communist like faction, and saying this is how evil and how
It's
manipulative.
one
No,
person
dude.
can be. Yeah, I mean, like you
Mhm.
like I mean,
That is a real thing. Yes,
you could listen
but
to
we're also talking.
like podcasts about cults and
Dude,
stuff
once
too.
again,
It happens all the time.
we're done, man. You can we like there's no convincing you otherwise, and that's fine. Like you
Okay.
said, you can rant and
I
rave,
mean,
but it's fine.
I'm
Go
not
for
the
it.
one ranting and raving. I just,
What did you just do now?
I'm
You
just
literally just
countering.
screamed about
I'm just
look
countering
at
what you're saying,
history.
man. Just like countering what you're
That's
saying.
not a counter.
Like I don't know. Like
Watch the next movie, and we'll see who's right. Something tells me that we're both going to be wrong, but also at the same time comparing them to, yeah, we'll see.
so
That's I'll just like
so you think that it's going to be a balancing of the equation Neo type thing that's what Miles essentially is.
I think that is the closer to the realistic of the situation
I think
because
that's probably pretty close. I don't know how
then why did you
close.
just argue with me for like an hour and a half?
No, I'm not arguing that point. I'm arguing about the plausibility of what Miguel is doing in the source material versus that being a plot hole compared to what you're saying should be fixed with, how to fix that plot hole. But as far as like why Miles can be like why whenever he went into like Indian Spider-Man's universe, it didn't implode. It's because Miles was there. Uh, I can kind of see how they would be like, yeah, it's because he's like different. He's built different. He's not Peter. He's Miles. So it doesn't work the same whenever he goes into like a different universe. I can see them trying to explain it that way, but
I thought they also went ahead and like part of the whole Gwen talking to her father and him quitting. I thought that she had said a comment. No, I can't remember 100% now. But something like, because Miles was saying you should, or because of confronting and talking, like, or she like came to the. I thought she came to the realization because, like Miles was right. We can change the situation, or things can change. Um, some sort of conclusion to that, because when the moment he says, I quit, when in the middle of your speech, halfway through your speech, and then she makes some sort of comment of like relating it to Miles, and I was just, so once again, like her previously, she was accepting the fate of her dad, doomed to die,
mhm.
um, because obviously her dad, it's either her dad dies or her whole world dies. What is it? And so it's, because if the collapse happens, the whole world, and other in the universe, but whatever, like, will go. So she is kind of accepted to her fate. But now that since her interaction with Miles, you know she now has able to, her dad now quit, so now her dad won't die. But in theory, it's going to be a different police chief, just not her dad.
but but like that breaks it because I mean like that breaks it for her because it's supposed to be it's supposed to be her the chief, but the chief is also supposed to be her dad. If it's just some rando dude, then
um,
then
the
it
chief, the
doesn't.
chief, Indian chief wasn't his dad; it was his girlfriend's dad.
Yeah. So it would be so it would have to be her boyfriend's dad in that same universe, or her birth boyfriend's dad somewhere else. That'd
They
be
just made it. They just no, because it was Miles's dad prior. So it makes sense. It's just the chief is a good guy who sacrifices themselves for a person, a child, and the Spider-Man can't, like usually you can't make it in time. Once again,
but
this would have all been fixed
but it has
with
to
a
be
couple small
related.
examples.
But it's got to be related to like the spider person of that universe.
Something in that you would think, but once again, they don't explain squat, and that's where I find that, this little thing, they could have just with a couple small examples been like, okay, we understand that better. uh it's still silly, but we understand it better.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think I understand it less now.
Yeah, it's okay. um I just want, I'm just waiting for this R-rated, genocide version of Spider-Man 3, that Beyond
Dude,
Spider-Verse.
don't do that,
I'm
man.
waiting for you.
Don't do that. That's
You're the one who brought it
it's
up, the example.
disingenuous. It's disingenuous, man. Like
Dude, I'm
it's
saying
it's not good.
this is literally the examples you brought up. So I'm not the one who kept on referring to it as history.
People, this is what happens. I mean, there's so many examples throughout history, throughout everything of people
I'm not
just
denying that it
going
happens.
along.
I'm saying this is not going to happen in this. I'm like, I don't. There's no way I believe that that's the situation in this.
Okay. Well, maybe it won't be, but
Uh,
I think
and
it
I'm pretty
is.
sure at this rate, we've lost everyone, but that's okay. If you somehow made it to the end of this rant just to see how we see each other's throats, wow. It's like I'm surprised, shocked, maybe a little
I
nervous, and
figured that we were going to argue about Spider-Man, but I didn't think that it would be on that. I thought that it was going to be about the frame rate. Um, but yeah, I just didn't see that as a as a big sticking point, but it was.
well, obviously we look at, like, yeah, we see like I said, Miguel is not a good guy, but we see him as different types of bad guys for sure.
Yeah, that's for
And
sure.
so yeah, that's what I said. It'll be interesting to come back to this. Well, here's what we're going to say. We're going to say we're going to come back to this, and we won't remember any of this conversation, nor will we actually listen to it when the third movie comes out, and then we'll just try to argue with each other based off of our vague memory of this podcast. So it'll be
Yes.
kind of funny for us to, well, I'm just saying based off of history. Anytime we've said, almost every time we've said, hey, let's do a prediction cast or something else, we've never gone back to verify what we predicted.
Yeah, I still haven't seen Dune 2. Um,
You
uh,
gave up on theaters after you caught COVID from Dune 1, didn't you? Or was it Dune 1 or was it Spider-Man? I can't remember. You caught COVID in one of those theaters and then you stopped, like, you're like, I'm done with theaters.
I don't remember which movie it was, but I think the next movie, the next Spider-Man movie, is due out probably in 2 years. I know they had some issues with it. I think there was some issues with crunch or something in the last one. Um, anyway, but it'll probably be
You talking about the next Beyond the Spider-Verse?
yeah, Beyond the Spider-Verse, whatever the next Spider-Verse movie is. Miles
Okay.
Morales movie is.
Yeah, I didn't see a slated date for it. I did think it was at least solid enough for them to say, "Hey, here's the new movie title." But I haven't seen anything
I
hide nor
think
hair of a new release date.
I think they
So,
do have another one. I think they do have the release or the title out. But it'll
oh yeah, no,
probably
they said it at the end, or at
yeah.
least at the end of the Blu-ray. I don't know. I assume they had it at theaters as
So
well.
we have Into, Across, and then Beyond. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
So, I mean, you can blame Star Wars for that, because you have a proper first movie, then you have a half of a second that rolls into the third. Back to the Future did it, and then then Lord of the Rings made everything a trilogy. So,
yeah. We're never going back to doubles or singles again. Trilogies forever.
now a franchise happening. But
No.
yes, I see no date for it. I just quickly looked. So unfortunately, people are speculating, maybe 2025. So that would make
Mm,
sense. This came out last year, 2023, 2 years out. Uh,
that seems a little early to me, but I would like
the
it.
last
I'd like
movie,
it to be 25, but I think it's probably gonna be 26. But I could be wrong.
actually, now that oh no, you make a good point. 2018 was Into the Spider-Verse. Granted, that was a full movie, not necessarily setting up right away. They kind of hinted at this another sequel, but
Possibility.
2018 to 2023. But this one is clearly like Back to the Future, 2 to 3. They like a to be continued at the end.
They
So,
they
or,
promised they were gonna make another one, basically. So ostensibly
so
they should have
they
been.
roll into production probably immediately after.
Yeah.
So
Still,
this one shouldn't take as long, but 2026, fingers crossed. We most definitely won't remember
I
this
would
podcast,
expect
but
I would expect 26. 25, 25 seems pretty quick, but maybe they can do it. I don't know.
all right. Um, they obviously didn't listen to your Dune rant about how you need to film it all at one go.
I
Uh,
freaking told him. I freaking told him. Um,
all right.
but you know,
Well, cheers, guys, for like I said, for sticking with us. If you did, you must have some sort of you must like pain. Tell us what we did wrong. Tell us who you vote for. There we go. We'll take a poll. Uh,
yeah, I don't know how they're gonna do
uh,
that.
easy. We're on YouTube. There's
I
comments.
guess yeah, you can just
Uh,
put it on YouTube.
or any of the podcast spots, you can leave comments. Surprisingly, uh,
But can I read them? I don't even. I guess I could. I don't know if anybody.
we would get an email notification. We
Okay.
allegedly get comments all the time, but they're usually from spam people being like, "Hey, we heard we listened to your podcast. Do you want to buy our services?"
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, okay. I don't look at that email, I guess, very often. I do see the YouTube comments, and there's not very many, but yeah, okay. Well, until Beyond the Spider Verse.
Yeah, Nick, what summer words of wisdom are you going to give the people out there?
Make sure to always read your history, boys and girls.
I was gonna. I'm like, if you're gonna talk about drinking water again for like the third time, I was gonna
Just go back to the well. But
Oh yeah, boom, yeah. Well, water, huh? Boom. That is a good one. All right. Well, this is another Dead Pixel. Until next time, y'all just take it easy.
Bye.